that's behind me.
Yeah, that brings up very negative emotions for me.
I know, that was a great day of my life.
That was a terrible day. That was the beginning of the end for my team. So tell me, I know you're in Nashville, but tell people where you're at, what you do, what your story is, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Okay. In Nashville, Tennessee, been practicing 24 years, come July 31st.
Congrats.
Yeah. Hey, I still have a back. That's good.
Good. Always good.
Started out just like everybody else, out of school, bought a practice from a retiring gentleman. Just, excited to cut on teeth. And I was more cosmetic focused then. I still am, but the cosmetics is what obviously has led me down the journey I'm on. I had a father that was also a dentist. He passed away suddenly in 2004. And one of his wishes was for me to continue his legacy. So I purchased his practice with my brother. And then my brother passed away in 2008. And so it's been quite an uphill battle, I would say. He had a rather large practice. I know I overpaid for it. So that's been kind of my journey. And so there for many years, it was survival mode. And it was trying to figure out what I wanted, because I kind of got thrown into his dream and his practice, and being in that situation. And I realized quickly that wasn't the same dream I had. So met Dr. Schuster actually at a COIS class I was taking, and went through Dr. Schuster's stuff and met Barb Stackhouse, and that started me on my journey to finally getting healthier with myself and my practice. So did the Dr. Schuster thing, worked with Barb. Barb is still in my life, does her own thing, and met you through going through the Texas Center, and that's when things really started to shift for me. So,
wow, just kidding.
You were my aha moment. No, Texas Center was great, loved it, learned a lot, really changed my practice in a lot of ways, but I still felt like something was missing. So I went to the biological dental meeting and heard Dr. Liao speak, and he spoke about airway and how that's the baseline for what he looks at. And it just kind of clicked and made sense for me. And during that time, I think I had started working with you on thinking into results.
Probably, yeah.
And I was trying to get very clear on my C goal.
What's a C goal for those that are watching this that have no idea what that is?
A C goal is a goal you set that you have no way of really knowing how you're going to get there, but it's what drives you.
Oh, okay. That's good. It's a big freaking goal, guys. When you watch this, it's a big goal. Something
very big goal.
Really pushes you outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And so that was my aha moment, and that's when I finally truly found my C goal. And I know exactly where my journey's taken me now. And well, I still don't know how I'm going to get there, right, but I know what the journey is.
So tell me, so the airway thing is really, really big in your practice. And
yes.
When did you have all these mentors? So we all have mentors in our lives, right? And there's the connecting dot pieces, and that's how everybody's story kind of, plays out. I met this person, or I had this situation. What was kind of the aha moment for you? Because you've been through all this training, right? And you saw Dr. Liao speak, and I remember you talking to me about, this airway thing is really interesting, and I want to go in all in on that. But even when I was talking to you, you still had like pieces to kind of connect and move forward on. Like what was the big aha moment, or when did you notice that your practice was starting to click and move in this direction that you've always envisioned it? Uh-oh, are you frozen?
No, I'm trying to think.
Sorry,
a lot of it, honestly, this is what I would encourage dentists to do, that I don't think there's a lot of dentists out there that do this. And it's to go internal, and it's to look within first. And when I started truly believing I could do this, and I was like, I can present airway, I can do airway, I can truly help these people. That's when the shift happened. And then the more clear I got, the more I attracted the right team members to be around me and support me. Because as you know, I've been through quite a few team members over the past 3 years. And now, and you met my team because you came and did the dental sales training with us, and I've got the right people around me. And that's when it started to really click. And now they're as excited about it as I am, and they are buying into the vision. They're like, yes, we can do this. Yes, oh my God, we're doing this. And it's that excitement that's just carrying us through.
That's great. Do you have any tips for those out there? Because I know you've been working on finding that ideal team. And I talked a little bit about this last night, actually, in a Thinking in a Results call. But what tips do you have for people that are trying to find the right team members? Because I know it was a process for you.
This is going to sound so basic, but it honestly, and I think I told you this when you were here, it honestly started with me getting up every morning at like 4:30, 4:45 and I wrote down 10 things I'm grateful for, and I'd flip the page and I would write down 10 goals or 10 things that I envisioned. And a lot of that was, like 3 of them were about me personally, and then the rest was all about the office, like how it functioned. I described the team members that were around me, that they were excited to be at work, that it was a give and take relationship. And I just kept visualizing those people. And like I said, I thought I had some great assistants. And then the one assistant I had quit. And within the whole month of February, I had 3 new assistants start, one within a week of each other. And they're outstanding. And I laugh about it because I'll tell them all the time, I'm like, I envisioned y'all. I didn't know what you look like, but this is what it felt like. So cool. So honestly, it wasn't some magic ad. It wasn't, because they all came to me. They all showed up in different ways, and none of them were through an ad. Not one of them. Yeah. So one of them I met at brunch one Saturday, just randomly through a friend. The other one we met years ago, and it was always like the timing was always off. And then the other one I met through an assistant that used to work for me, and she texted me and she said, I heard you need an assistant. I have a great one for you. And they literally just all felt, it just was there. That's amazing. So
there's a law or an art. I don't know if it's a law or art, called the law of allowing, which is basically when you envision stuff, right? You start to set your goals out and you create this image. The other part of it is you can't decrease the opportunities for that to actually pop in your life. And so the law of allowing is basically to allow things to come to you and be aware in the moment that those are actually the things that are manifesting before you, without getting too metaphysical here. This isn't a Thinking in a Results call, but the reality is people ask me all the time, and there's a law of gestation. So it does take a while for things to actually play out, but you got to keep holding the vision of what it is you're trying to do in your mind, no matter what, because the universe will test you a little bit. And so The cool thing though is when you get these assistants on your team, like what happened to your production?
It has skyrocketed. I mean, we looked up today, and at this point right now, we were not at this point until October of last year. So we plan on almost doubling what we did last year.
That's awesome.
Not quite, but we're getting there.
That's so cool.
But it's funny because everybody has said, I mean, my front office, that was the other person I had to attract. And you and I've talked about that. And I didn't get this until I had this person, but dentists have to have somebody, unless they're real good at asking for money, you've got to have somebody that knows how to ask for money or close that sale.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I have that now too. And to the point that she comes in and she's like, we're going to do this, this, and this. And, you know, and she's pumped and she gets everybody else excited. So I'm just a big believer that's how it all kind of happened.
That's so amazing.
So
you got 4 new team members in the span of like.
They all started at front desk started end of January. All 3 assistants started in February. So basically 2 months, 4 new team members.
So you've been, and I think you literally almost went up like 70% or something, like there was some insane number between March, and you're not doing anything drastically different in your practice. You are implementing the same services you've been doing.
Right.
It's not like I added a buy one, get one off on Invisalign. So like production goes up, but all of a sudden now you're on the back end trying to fulfill all this stuff, and your collections, your production's way off, and you're overworked and overstressed. Like this is a naturally good flow for your practice, but you're still increasing your production by 70. It was like 70%. It was some insane number. What was the number percentage wise? Do you know?
I don't know. I could do it on my calculator.
It was like 50 or 60. It was like 60 or 70 grand or something like that. Almost literally from one month to the next. And it's insane.
it was pretty. I saw that number today. So let's see.
And the cool thing is when you're doing this, and it's not all about the money, but you're doing.
So we went up 60,000 from April to May, March to April or something like that. And we were consistent. Well, no, it was March to April. And then we went up a little more in May. And we're not going to go up much in June, but we're still staying where we need to be.
You're staying at that level. You're not.
Yeah, like when you talked to us in our meeting and you said, okay, well, quit making this the bare minimum, reach for that. And it's like, I don't know if you had some magic wand that day, but it just, like, we haven't looked back.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's a great segue. Because I was going to ask, like, how, obviously we've done a lot of stuff together on a lot of different avenues, self-work and sales work and all that stuff. Where does DSS fit into the grand scheme of things as an airway-based full mouth rehabilitation dentist? Like, how have you implemented that in your practice? What results have you seen?
Well, we're still implementing that and still learning from it. But I think the biggest thing the team got from the day we did the training was, especially having 4 new people and assistants that had not been exposed. I mean, they're very highly trained. They've all been in dentistry over 20 years, but they had not seen the dentistry I do, and they haven't seen the way I do it. And they didn't understand the concept of setting the patient down in a consult room and finding out their goals and their wants, and discussing how we're going to look at we're going to treat the cause, not the symptoms. So when a patient starts telling me, well, I've got this broken tooth and this got broken tooth. Okay, well, what's your goal? Well, I want to feel good my whole life. Okay, well, those broken teeth are symptoms to me of a bigger issue. And and slowing that down, it clicks, and everybody's starting to understand that.
Yeah. That's great.
I still think it could be even slower, but like I said, it's starting to click.
Do you find like the slower you go in your practice, the more you make?
Yes.
Yeah.
Our goal probably by next year is to go down to working 3 days a week. Right now we're about 3.5. So.
And the reality is, people ask me like if I could give one piece of advice, it would be that. Now, some offices aren't structured that way originally, but I have found that the slower I go, the more money I make. Up to a point. Now, if you're doing general dentistry, if you're doing crowns and fillings, no, that doesn't actually happen. Like you don't do slower fillings and make more money, but the process itself, that new patient process and the way you engage with patients, the slower you go. And I'm probably cutting out. Am I not?
No, you're good. No, what I was gonna say is I still think even with the general dental side, if you still stop to pay attention to it, like we had a new patient today and we didn't take him into the consult room because he was just a second opinion and said he had never had cavities in his life. All of a sudden he went to a dentist here and they told him he had 9 cavities or something. We took new x-rays. I sat him up and I said, okay, what are you looking for from me? And he goes, well, 1, I want to know if I have 9 cavities. And 2, if I do, I want to, make sure that I don't get in pain or anything. So I sat him up and I actually showed him his x-rays and explained, this is what's going on. And he said, nobody explained that to me. And that was a good moment for me, because I realized, all it takes is slowing down and showing people what's going on.
Yeah.
He said, well, I went to this other dentist. I'd never met him. And the next thing I know, I'm walking out and they want me to spend all this money. And then he ended and goes, well, can I become a patient here? I'm like, absolutely. And I didn't even do the new patient process like I usually do.
Well, and that's the thing, and that gives hope for people, because I get this question all the time. I'm a PPO-based practice. I don't have time to do the new patient process. Okay. Implement like 5% of it and watch what happens to your practice. That notion that people buy into, I don't have time to go slower, I don't have time to explain, that's BS. It's absolute BS, guys. Like, if you're doing quadrant dentistry, which if you have, if you're in insurance contracts, like you really actually need to be doing some quadrant dentistry in your practice, your ability to slow down and talk in sections, talk in systems, and help people understand what's going on a larger scale, people will be much more accepting of quadrant dentistry. They'll be much more accepting of moving on a path with you, but you got to slow down. Just even if it's 20%, we have intraoral cameras now. I don't know what it was like before intraoral cameras. How do you explain this to somebody? And, just snapping photos and just taking a few minutes, which is great. But here's one key, and I know you know this. You got to stop talking about individual teeth like those are the problem. The teeth are, if you have a problem with the tooth, it's a symptom of something bigger.
Right.
For the tooth, I forgot who, somebody was saying this on a Facebook Live, and it was actually pretty good. I think it was Coyce, John Coyce, right? Like, the guy's legit. He knows his stuff. Yeah. And he said, when we say the crown failed, we're actually setting our dentistry up for failure in the future by saying, the crown failed and now we need to replace the crown due to decay. The crown didn't fail. The tooth underneath the crown failed.
Right.
And so you're actually downplaying the role of dentistry and how long-lasting dentistry can be. You need to start having different discussions with patients that are not tooth-centric, and they're more symptoms and cause-centric and systems-centric. And even if you can do that and then break down, well, here's where we're going to start, and then start to move them along that path, you will get much more success much faster than if you start focusing on teeth. Because the second you focus on one tooth, what ends up happening is the patient now has put it back into a tooth-centric mode. You want to try to stay out of that as long as possible.
Yeah, what I did with this guy is because he starts going, well, I don't eat sugar and I brush my teeth all the time. And I said, well, this is a systemic thing. I said, what we're finding is it's more of an acidic situation than it is a sugar situation. And you could just see him going, oh, and he took it then. I always try to tie it back to something that's more whole health related, and as I get him in there and I get to know him, if we start finding more symptoms that could be airway related, he's going to trust me to say, okay, let's go do this. But if this was the first time he came in and he's looking for a second opinion about cavities and I'd gone straight into my airway talk, that wasn't his goal of being there.
That's right.
So I think the biggest thing, and I've had to work on this myself just because the more I learn, I feel like I can't unsee it. I feel like you've got airway, I feel like everybody's got airway issues. But I've got to slow down and listen to what is that patient here for? And then when I hear what that patient's there for, I'll deal with it and gain their trust and we'll go from there.
That's right. And, when you learn technical training, what's the saying? Like, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail.
Yeah.
And it does happen in technical training, and it's happened to me and it's happened to everybody, because if you learn certain things in technical training, you cannot unsee them. And it can get actually very frustrating for a dentist. It's the second aspect of dental sales secrets is like, you can actually implement some of the stuff you're learning so you're not so frustrated all the time. Right? I mean, you see this and I see this all the time. We have dentists that spend a lot of money on technical training and don't do one case. Like,
right.
How would you even do that? And a lot of it is they try to force everything down on a patient because they learned some new weekend training.
Right.
And they've not understood the importance of forming a relationship with the patient and meeting the patient where they're at, and then having a mental model in your head of where you could potentially go with this person, and then leading them on a path of code discovery, like what that actually means, like having a code discovery, like they are discovering for the first time with you.
Right.
What are your suggestions? I don't want to take too much of your time. What are your suggestions for people that are either just starting in, not just dental sales secrets, but they're starting to do more comprehensive based? What are some tips and points of wisdom that you could give somebody as they start this journey? Or maybe they're going through it, but they're frustrated a little bit and they're not getting the results they want.
First thing is, don't get overwhelmed, because I've done that even with the airway. I feel like there's so much to learn and I feel like I can't learn it fast enough. And some of the people I've met through the airway journey that have been doing this, have said, you're going to feel that way. Take your time. It'll all come together. And the right people are showing up. But one, don't get overwhelmed. Try to slow down and listen to the patient's needs and wants, because they may, even though you may see the bigger picture, they may not be there yet. So the more you can slow down and listen to the patients, build that relationship, go slow to go fast, I think the more you take time to do that, and we're human. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to piss people off. You're going to screw up. You just learn from it and try to do better on the next patient.
Love it.
So that's pretty much all I can do. So
it's great advice. What are the big things you want to finish 2019 out with? I know you talked about some production goals, but any like personal goals or anything that you are working on?
Personally, I'm working on a challenge of walking or running a mile or a mile and a half every day. Professionally, still working on some airway, wanting to start maybe getting some studies going on that. And just trying to be honestly better and calmer, just trying to streamline my life and simplify my life. And just keep working towards the vision of what I see my life being, taking more self-care instead of having to run around in circles and Okay, because I've always been that responsible person, and I'm still going to always be responsible, but it would be nice to kind of sit back and go, hey, that's handled. I can relax a little bit. So
the
kind of my goals.
To try to do everything themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Dr. Lewis, thank you so much for popping on today. And
you're so welcome.
if you guys have any questions for her, obviously this is on Facebook Live, so people are probably going to watch it later. That's this group is still small, so I don't know. If anybody is watching live and have any questions right now, this would be a great time to ask. But if you're watching this on replay, or you think of any questions that you would like to ask either myself or Dr. Lewis, just put them in the comments, and I'd be sure to get those answered for you guys. So thanks so much again for taking 30 minutes out of your day and spending it with us. And if there's anything I can do for you, you just let me know, okay?
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good night.